So let's talk about dimensional distance. I only have a couple slides, but those of you that have been modeling with our software, when we want to measure the distance between a surface and a pin, a lot of times we'd have to measure the diameter of the pin because that's got variation. Then we'd measure from the center of the pin to the surface, and then we'd use an equation measure and subtract the diameter from the distance. And, it's a lot of work. So now we added this dimension distance measure. As you can see from this picture here, we can measure center to center, minimum distance, maximum distance, and produce similar results that you get if you measure the same type of thing in your CAD platform. We also have added the capability for this dimensional distance measure to extract directly from the CAD. So if you have, assembly dimension distance measures as you see in this picture here, or you see over here and here, with a button click, we can extract them and turn them into measurements in the 3DCS software. With that, I'm going to jump over to CATIA. And of course, I have a different picture here. Oops. CATIA uses a mouse. And so this is a very simple model because I want to have you understand the effects. So the first thing I'm going to do is just hit deviate. And you can see that I have a position, size, and orientation tolerance on here. There's a position tolerance here. And this one just has a position and a orientation tolerance. Down here, these are the dimension distance measures that are already written. And if I run this analysis, I'm going to go ahead and run a quick analysis. Ooh, maybe I'll do a quick 5,000 instead of 10,000. And the main thing I want to point out is, we're measuring from this pin to this sphere. And if you look at the nominal, it's 302, it's 252, it's 352. So we can, automatically pick up the minimum and maximum distance, subtracting in and out the diameter of the sphere or the diameter of the pin. And if you look, you can see I have a position tolerance contributor and a perpendicularity tolerance contributor. And if I go minimum distance, now I have a position, perpendicularity, and size, because that's taking me out to the edge here. And of course, if I go maximum distance, the contributors are the same. So those were measurements that were already written, just so that you could see the process. I'm going to go ahead and write a measurement. And in the pull down now, you can see you have your point distance, your GD&T measure, and now inserted in here is dimension distance measure. If I click on that, from this dialog box, you have 3 pull downs. You can measure center to center, minimum distance, maximum distance. And then you just pick your features. So I'm going to measure between this hole and this pin. So I'll pick that hole, and I'll pick this pin, and you can see center to center, it says it's 300. If I change this to minimum distance, it's 200. Maximum distance, it's 400. Okay, so it's picking up the distance, the differences in the radius or diameter, whichever one you want to refer to. I'm going to keep it at minimum distance and just say OK. So now we have another measurement between this pin and this hole, and I'll go ahead and run another analysis real quick. I go into this measurement. Now you can see, if you remember, this had a size, position, orientation. This has a size and an orientation. And if you look at your contributors, you got position, perpendicular, perpendicular, hole size, pin size. 200 is the nominal. So the idea is with this measurement, we can now calculate the same values that you get in your CAD system without having to do a bunch of equation measures to pick up the minimum distance between diametrical features or spherical and diametrical pins. So then what I want to show is that if I go up here into CATIA, you can see at the assembly level, I also have dimension distance written. So this is dimensions written inside the CAD system. And you can see how, this one's going to the outside edge. So I'm measuring from this face to this outside edge, or the inside edge, or the center. So if you have those already written, gotta get my GoToMeeting out of my way. Then I can come over here and you can see we have another button. So previously, if you're familiar with our CATIA package, we have update model, update geometry, import the FT&A, import the assembly FTA as GD&T measures, and now we have a new button, update measure. If I click this button here, you can pull in dimension measures from all components, parts only, or products only. I only have dimension distance measures written at the product, so I'll just pick this, and you can see that it pulled in 3 measurements. I want you to pay attention to the spec limits that you see here, 200 plus or minus 0.25, 150 plus or minus 0.5, etc. So now if I come down here, you can see that I have 3 more measurements. That little icon is telling you it was pulled in from the CAD system. So this is, as we're continually stepping forward to model-based definition and pulling as much information that's embedded in the CAD as possible. And if we look at this center distance, which is 200 plus or minus 0.25, let's go in this measurement. I got the plus or minus 0.25, it's 200, it's set to center. If I go into this minimum distance, you can see it's set to minimum distance. It's set to plus or minus 0.5. That threw me for just a second. And it's 150. We'll do one last check. Maximum distance 250 plus or minus 1. So with the push of a button, we can extract the dimension distances, or we can write them directly in our software, and then we can run an analysis.
Hey Gary, I got a couple pertinent questions that came in real fast.
Sure.
So thank you, DJ. How does dimensional distance measurement, min-mode, differ from feature measure? And can you use this in iteration moves to bring 2 parts into contact like feature measure?
The dimension distance measure is looking at the top, middle, and bottom of the hole or pin, and then it's measuring it along the vector from the feature picked. So this one here would be measuring normal to this surface from here to this point, this point, this point, and then outputting the minimum, if it's up here or down here. So it's different than the feature measure, and it wouldn't pick up, if you had some kind of bump in the center here. It's just going to look at the 3 spots.
So a follow-up on that. Thank you, Dean. Does that assume infinite length pins and holes?
No, we are looking at the CAD and going to the top and the bottom. It's not assuming the infinite length.
Great. One last one. Thank you, David. For the distance measure, In CATIA v5, will the mesh setting affect the measurement if measuring to or from a cylindrical feature?
No. Again, because we are essentially taking this feature and representing it with internally a point at the bottom, the middle, and the top. So it would be like creating 3 points, doing a point-to-point measure along a vector, and outputting the minimum of the, well, taking the circle diameter at the top and the middle and the bottom, measuring from this point to the top, middle, bottom, finding the minimum distance, subtracting the diameter. Okay, so it's essentially just looking at it at 3 sections.
Thank you.
The mesh won't affect it. So then I just extracted them, and you can see if I'm measuring center to center, or if I'm measuring from here to the center, I only have the position, tolerance, and perpendicularity. As soon as I go to minimum distance, you can see the hole size is showing up in the minimum